what the Book of Enoch reveals and denies. The identity of Enoch. Enoch is considered to be the seventh after the Jewish patriarch Adam to live in the years before the deluge, before the great flood. Methuselah's father Lameck, grandfather and Noah's grandfather, is considered by Christian tradition to be one of the two prophets, the other being Elijah, who did not die but ascended alive into heaven. It's believed that both will return to earth in the years of the Antichrist, as mentioned in the Revelation of John, and will be the last witnesses of the faith before the second coming, according to Book of Revelation 11:1-12. However, many question the historicity of Enoch's face, acknowledging that it is the collective title of a class of spiritually advanced people who have taught science and the arts to others, as accepted by Elena Blavatsky's theosophical system, and the same circle believes that the names of Prometheus, Orpheus, and the god Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus, the Eridis of the Muslims, and other persons mentioned in mythology are collective. The Book of Enoch. The prophet Enoch is credited with writing a text that contains prophecies about the coming of the Messiah, the end of the world, speaks of the fall of angels, the rebel angels, and gives detailed descriptions of hell and paradise, the movements of the planets as well as weather and much more. So he had scientific and astronomical knowledge as well. Now this book, the teachings of which are believed to have been transmitted through oral tradition, is not included in the books of the Old Testament and is considered an occult text, an apocryphal text, although it may have greatly influenced not only the Pentateuch of the Jews, the first 5 books of the Holy Bible that were written by the prophet Moses, but even the revelation of the Apostle John and the letters of the apostles. The first fathers of the church were strongly influenced by it and praised it, such as Saint Irenaeus, Saint Justin, Saint Clement of Alexandria, Athenagoras, the Apostle Peter, and the Jewish historian Josephus. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. Nevertheless, none of them agreed with the narration of the fall of the angels, as we will see below. The fact is, though, that it is not considered a heretical book, even if it is not included in the Old Testament. It's not considered heretical. Scholars suggested that it may have been written in Hebrew during the Babylonian captivity, the Babylonian exile, about 600 BC, because many of its descriptions, such as those of the Old Testament, resemble those of the prophet Daniel. It's certain that it underwent variations in its copies, and while it was well known in early Christian times, its traces disappear on the end of the 8th to the beginning of the 9th century AD. The English travelers Bruce and Ruppel find a copy in Abyssinia written in Coptic, and in 1811 it's translated into English by Bishop Lawrence and then into other languages. Okay, they found it again in Abyssinia in 1811. The heretical points of the book, quote unquote. As mentioned, the point that provoked reactions with the narration of the fall of the angels, the Christian tradition holds that an angel, Aphrodite, probably the highest of the angelic order, became, because of his arrogance, not Aphrodite, but we would see Lucifer, made him want to be above God. That's because, as the Christian doctrine says, that's when he found out that God wanted to create man a little below angels, and the head of the angels believed that that man didn't deserve that. That's why he went against God. But anyway, going back to this, because of his arrogance that made him want to be above God, rebelled, and the angels were divided into 2 factions. Those who followed him, and from what doctrine says, about 1/3 of the angelic forces fell with him, and to those who responded to the call of the Archangel Michael, saying, "Let us stand well, let us stand in fear of God." So the head of the angelic realm now is, of course, the protector of Israel, Archangel Michael. Now the first, together with their leader, meaning Lucifer, fell forever from the hierarchy of light and turned into the dark demons who have been plotting against the divine work ever since. Many traditions have been created on this view by the Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches. The Book of Enoch, however, takes a different view, so let's see what that says. Quote, "And it came to pass that when the sons of men were multiplied in those days, they were born beautiful and good daughters, and they saw the angels, the sons of heaven, and spake unto one another, Let us choose ourselves as women from men, and give birth to children ourselves. And Simaiza said unto them, They are their leaders. I'm afraid you will not want to do this thing, and I am the only debtor of a great sin. Everyone responded, Let us take an oath and curse each other. Do not abhor this idiot until we do it and sing this thing. They then all shrugged their shoulders and cursed each other in it." End quote. And we quote again, "And they took wives for themselves, and every one of them chose a woman for himself, and began to go unto them, and to be with them, and to teach them medicines and concerning childbirth, and rhizomes, and in the gastric lavushin, giants of trillions of thousands of Etus fell and made the people toil. As these people were not able to subsidize, the giants dared to attack the people and began to sin against them and the beasts and the reptiles and the fish and other flesh and blood. Then the earth rejoiced against the wicked." So in other words, it wasn't only sinning against humans, they were also doing it against animals. I don't know if it was bestiality or also transhumanism. Now, going back to the article, the narrative goes on to describe in detail the arts that the angels taught women, meaning the techniques of doing things, and the evil that the giants sowed on earth until the four most powerful angels, Michael, Gabriel, Suriel, and Uriel, looked at the earth and realized what had happened, so they informed God. God decided to throw the fallen angels into the depths of the abyss forever, the giants to be destroyed by their own hands, and the sinful race of men to disappear by the flood, meaning the Nephilim races. Now the fallen angels begged Enoch to intercede for them to God, but he answered them that angels intercede for men and not the other way around. Continuing, the text mentions the extremely interesting that the giants will give birth to evil spirits that will be called spirits of evil, and will not eat, will not drink, will be invisible and responsible for every misfortune of humans. Now, comments on the fall of angels. There have been various attempts to interpret the above narrative, which is the most heretical point in the book. First of all, it should be pointed out that such a text can be allegorical, and its real interpretation can be based on keys, quote unquote, without the knowledge of which it is not possible to interpret. I will rely on what is literally described. Some argue that the translation of the word Elohim is incorrect because it's translated not only as angels as in Enoch, but also as sons of God or virtuous people. Therefore, the quote-unquote sons of God, that is, the virtuous people, reproduce with inferior women committing sin and not the angels of God. So these Elohim, of course, should have another name, okay, Nephilim or whatever, fallen angels. Now, the truth is that the Hebrew word Elohim is a plural meaning gods or powers, and the phrase B'nai Elohim means sons of the gods. As mentioned in Genesis, in the phrase in question, quote, his son saw, and quote, God, the daughters of men, Genesis 6:2. We're talking about Genesis giants here. The explanation of this point in the translation I have at my disposal, Brother Savior under N. Vasiliadis, claims that the sons of God are the descendants of the pious generation of Seth by Enos, and the daughters of men are the descendants of his generation Cain, which is characterized as corrupt. However, the text of Enoch clearly states there were 200 who descended on the top of Mount Hermon in the days of Jared. So it was not the descendants of Cain, it was the angels who descended, and the location was Mount Hermon in the days of Jared. So if they were humans, from what higher point did they obviously descend to the mountain? To get down somewhere, one has to be higher, and what is higher than a mountain? So this, together with the interpretation based on the sons of God as descendants of Seth, brings to mind the occult false book of Adam and Eve, which states that the protoplasts expelled from paradise lived on top of a very high mountain, and then at the time of Abel's assassination, Cain's descendants lived at the foot of the mountain, and the pious at the top were forbidden to descend and associate with their meager relatives at the foot of the mountain. But even if we accept this as an explanation, the text mentions the descendants on Aradis, so we do not accept that the pious of the top descended to the abominable races at but some higher than the mountain. The interpretation of the word as people, however, does not explain the products of this union, hence the giants or Nephilim as mentioned in the text. If we were humans, why did our reproduction lead to the birth of giants, who are also referred to in the book of Genesis? And the giants were in the earth in those days, and with that, as if the sons of God were coming into the daughters of men, and they became one. They were the giants of the age, the famous men. Genesis 6:4. Let's remember, of course, there are various passages concerning giants in the Old Testament and New Testament. Let's remember the 12 spies at the time of Exodus who that Moses sent to see the promised land, and they said that they saw the giants there and that they were like little insects compared to the size of those giants. Humans, that is, or were like insects in the eyes of the giants. That's how huge they were. And also, of course, giants after the flood in the time of David, King David, and his conflict and battle with Goliath. Now, while in Numbers 33:13, he mentions that there were sons of the Anak and hints that in the end of the flood, they did not destroy all of them, but at least some were survived in the region of Palestine. Another argument of those who accept the version of the main mistranslation is based on Genesis, where God states, "Let not my spirit remain in these men forever, for they are flesh." Genesis 6:3. If we look at the text, however, we find that the word people can refer to the giants and not to their parents, the fallen or the vigilantes, the rebel angels. The meaning does not change if we consider this and agree with the Book of Enoch that, quote, "born of spirits and flesh, on earth their habitation is," end quote. Therefore, I believe that even this argument expressed by St. Augustine does not exclude the correctness of the text of Enoch. The most central argument of the book critics, however, is that, according to them, angels cannot, as spirits, have children. We will stay here longer. Now, in the Gospel of Matthew, Christ states that, quote, "In the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are angels of God in heaven," end quote. Based on this, the book's critics claim that Christ himself has given a definitive answer to these theories. Again, however, the God-man, Jesus Christ, could mean not the angels as a whole, but those who chose not to unite, the righteous angels who answered the call of the Archangel Michael and remained in paradise. It does not in any way clarify whether the angels have the ability to create life or not. Angels are supposed to be asexual spirits, at least in the Orthodox doctrine tradition, who are necessarily depicted as young men in iconography. Now, however, the latter have been accused of indecency, that is the fallen angel, the Nephilim, indecency against living men and women in the form of incubi and succubi. I do not know if a case of childbearing has been reported, but there are many cases of sexual intercourse. The Inquisition accuses witches of indecent acts with demons. Church saints say they suffered from them. Yes, because demons can manifest themselves in human forms. They can even manifest themselves as mountains in front of you, okay, or ETs or whatever. Now, going back to this, they're shapeshifters, yes. Childbearing by gods and goddesses in the, for example, ancient Greek mythology, the gods of Olympus, Mount Olympus, is a common tradition throughout the world, not only ancient Greek mythology, but also other mythologies. Common tradition throughout the world, and the Immaculate Conception of Christ and others were done through the mediation of a spirit, and it was supposed that the Antichrist of the Christian tradition, it is supposed that the Antichrist will be the product of such an illegal conception. Something that usually escapes the attention of all those who have dealt with the issue we're talking about is the attitude of the daughters of men. Why did they accept, without fear at least, contact with spiritual entities that were obviously completely different from them? Let's remember from what the Apostle Paul wrote in the New Testament, that we should always keep in mind how Eve was tempted, because Satan came down as an angel of God of light, and she thought him so beautiful and so wonderful that she fell in love with him immediately. She was enticed by him because of his angelic appearance. So yes, that's how we have to try the spirits, because they can even manifest themselves in front of us as angels of light. That's how he appeared to Eve. So throughout nature, the female should feel an attraction for the male, which may be nice or ugly, yet it looks like individuals of this kind, if one excludes at least perversions. So could the egregores have deceived women, the fallen angels have deceived women by appearing in human form? Well, obviously that's what the Apostle Paul tells us. Yes, not only human form, but also in angelic form. Of course they could. The entire Old Testament and the Book of Enoch state that the angels can take human form when they want to, so logically they should appear before them as humans. Now we have a lot of witnesses and testimonies of the monks of Mount Athos in northern Greece, where no females are allowed in that peninsula. There are 20 monasteries there, and of course all night they pray, and in the morning they have holy liturgy. And there are many times they say that they hear women knocking on the door of the church, the front door of the church, saying, help me, I need your help, where there's no women in Mount Athos. So yes, they do appear in the form of an enticing woman and trying to tempt these monks to stop their liturgy and also fall to temptations. Now, going back to this, if they declared their identity, we do not know. However, they may have done so. Otherwise, God would have no reason to be angry with the women, since they fell victim to fraud. But the God of the Old Testament has so many human flaws that no one can be sure of how he would react. Now, going back to this. I don't believe that God has flaws, but this is what this article is talking about. There are some things that we question that we don't know of. Now, Christian beliefs seem to place the fall of the angels in prehistoric times, before the creation of Adam. Genesis states that Eve was deceived by the snake, and was deceived in the location of paradise. So the fall must have happened earlier. Now, however, Enoch tells us that it was in the years of Jared that the fallen angels descended to Mount Hermon, that is, in times when people were already living on earth, expelled from paradise for many generations, at least 6 in number. And if indeed the apple symbolizes the knowledge that a spirit should never reveal to humans, then one might assume that the author of Genesis had in mind the story of Enoch, although he or some others took care to censor and cover it behind symbolism. Now, the birth of Noah. Lameck, Noah's grandson, got married, and when his wife had a child, terror seized his soul. The child's flesh was white as snow and pink like a rose, while his hair was also white. As soon as he opened his eyes, the room was lit, and as soon as he opened his mouth, he began to praise God. Noah, that is. Lameck feared that he was not his own child, but that of an angel, meaning a fallen angel, sent his father Methuselah to Enoch, who was already living with the angels, to consult him about Noah's birth. Enoch assured him that he was his own child, narrated to him the fall of the fallen angels, and prophesied to him that Noah would survive the flood that would destroy the people and the products of the ungodly with the fallen. Comments? In the first phase, the image of Noah looks like albinism, a disease in which no melanin is produced in the body. No albino, however, can speak from the moment of his birth, praising God especially. So in Lameck's question, it seems that the belief in the reproductive abilities of the angels was common at that time and could not have been influenced by Enoch, since the latter only then revealed in Methuselah the fall of the awakening and the coming flood. Could Noah's description be a symbolic reference to the creation of the white race? Unfortunately, there is no confirmed evidence of such great antiquity of the Jews, nor are there any reports of the appearance of Noah's sons. Here, as in the story of the flood, the possibility of the influence of those copying or the authors from their early sources seems perhaps more intense than ever. Now, Enoch was already living with the angels in a place far away, but accessible from Methuselah by Methuselah. Methuselah knew where to find his father Enoch when Enoch was already with the angels. What this place may have been, no one knows. However, after that, Enoch ascended to heaven. Due to views of all those who claim that they were not angels but intelligent beings from other planets who met with mortals coming down from their flying vehicles, and due to the differences in genetic material gave birth to giants, stand logically. Could this stand? As I leave it up to your judgment. In conclusion, the Book of Enoch was presented very briefly and with more weight on the fall of the angels, less on the birth of Noah. Of course, the text does not only include these facts, but also the descriptions of other realms of existence, interpretations of celestial phenomena, the names of the lords of celestial bodies or angels or powers, as they are typically mentioned. These passages contain many difficult points and are a good ground for study. The exclusion of the Book of Enoch from the Old Testament series is understandable, since what is described contradicts the traditions embraced by the Church in its attempt to introduce a new doctrine, free from old conceptions of similar doctrines. Whether the Church has achieved this is a matter for another article. Now, the God of Enoch is a typical God of the entire Old Testament. Tough, punitive, unconvinced, majestic in the face of his omnipotence, unyielding in the face of the apology of the fallen, with suspicions of human emotions and especially anger. The demons that afflict people are not the enemy in Enoch. These are rather described as sad figures, in contrast to the Christian tradition which blames them for every evil. In Enoch, the spirits of the giants are the ones who cause suffering, trapped in the lower material dimensions from which they were born. The concept of knowledge acquisition is also ambiguous. On the one hand, it's considered a sin, which was transmitted by the fallen angels, and on the other hand, Enoch offers plenty of it. In other words, while giving some astronomical and astrological knowledge, he rebukes Aquila, Tamil, and Asarabel, who taught the same things to the daughters of men. The similarities in the history of the Titans, especially with Prometheus, are obvious. Well, it depends. Enoch did not teach women how to have abortions as the fallen angels did, okay? Or how to be enticing using makeup and body paints and jewelry and things like that. Now, as the fallen angels did. Now, and one wonders if all this technological civilization we have developed, which may destroy as well as save, started from the abominable fallen angels, or if it was a divine gift. Now, what God, who we accept to be the perfect being, would allow flaws so vindictive, so human, that would deprive his beloved creatures of knowledge to make their lives better? So for this reason, the Book of Enoch, regardless of the correctness or not of his narratives, like all of the Old Testament, is offered for fruitful reflections on religious, theological, and not only issues. So let's remember that the Book of Enoch is not a heretical book, not seen so by the Christian Church. This is translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support.